mistake. Okay, I see the live ball, so we are live.
We are live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Get Into the Grant Tuesdays. I'm your host, Guy Holly, grant writer, community resource developer, a person who really cares about helping you all to access the funding that's available to help so that you can achieve and execute on your mission. Tonight, I'm joined with one of my favorite couples, the Browns, Matthuel and Nichelle of the Landmark Kids. I'm not going to steal their thunder, but having the opportunity to meet them 9 months ago has really helped change my life by listening to what they're doing to impact kids, but really to impact families to develop, culturally develop, and be more aware of that we do live in a global society, but doing it in a fun and unique way. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about how they were able to receive an amazing grant. I put it in the comments, $50,000 right here during the holidays, and but more importantly, what they're going to do with that. How were they able to do that through relationships? And so, real quick, everybody, Matthuel and Nichelle Browne, please, thank you for joining me tonight. Please tell me a little bit, not just me, but tell our audience a little bit about yourselves, what you guys do, where you're from, and how Landmark Kids was started.
For sure, for sure. First off, thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here, and you are part of what our favorite couples as well.
Thank you.
uh,
Thank you.
but just a little bit about us. Yeah, so we're the Landmark Kids, and what we're on a mission to do is help kids understand the world around them in a fun and engaging way. So we do that through we have kits we send across the country, all over the United States, and 50 states period. And one of the key things that we do is each one is an immersive escape room in a box. The kids open it up and they're able to learn about a different country each month through stories and puzzles. One of the key things that helped us to get down this road is because we have been exposed to so many different things around the world through travel as well as living abroad. Both of us have lived a different country and continent.
Wow.
Also, both of us have been to 15 countries apiece. And it's been one of those opportunities as well that open up our world. But we started to meet kids along our journeys before and after we met each other, and we realized they don't have a really a grasp of what really is around them, and that exposure opens doors. So we want a mission to help as many kids as possible expose them and then open their doors for them.
Wow. That is so good and so rich. And that was a mission that my mom had, right? So for those who don't know, I grew up in rural northeastern North Carolina in a county that has one stoplight. Repeat that again, one stoplight in our county. And she was from larger suburbs, like outside of Chicago and Illinois, outside of DC. So she had the opportunity to experience cultures just because of all the people that lived around her. And when she moved here, she saw that that was a lack, and her and my dad made, well, really it was the influence from my mom that helped push my dad that said that, hey, we're going to at least travel to a different state or go on a vacation somewhere each summer. They made a sacrifice so that we could do that, but then also through the programming and grants she received allowed myself and my peers the opportunities to go to different summer camps and other initiatives where we were able to meet people from different cultures, even within inside of North Carolina. Because coming from northeastern North Carolina going to Raleigh, right? It's a 2 hour drive, but within that, that's the Piedmont where all the tech and everything is booming. It was still a different culture for us. And being able to have those experiences helped me to be prepared to go to college. And
Mm,
also the summer camps where we had international staff coming in, that was my first taste of like, wow, there's a world out here.
mm.
There's a world that's different than America, that's different than North Carolina, and being able to experience that. But then also, she made sure we read. So being able to flip through books and reading about those places as well. I wish we had a game with it because it probably would have made it a little bit more interesting, or some way a puzzle. But that's amazing that you all created that, and I'm glad that you are putting this out to the world to see, right? So that other kids can have that opportunity. And you all have done my bucket list, right? I wrote down several years ago to travel to 30 different countries, right? And you've lived in the
Mm.
15. So I got some catching up to do. Well, we have some catching up to do because my kids are on that goal list too, that they're going to go to at least 15 with us. So
So,
we're supposed to be going to Africa in like not in 2025. One of my wife's best
okay.
friends is Kenya. She's getting married, and so we're gonna go to Kenya, which is this month's, right? It was this
Which is
month's.
this month's box. You
Yeah,
nailed it.
yep,
Yep.
yep. Awesome, awesome. So
Oh,
you guys recently received an incredible gift, right? 5 stacks. Well, no, let's see, 50 stacks, right? Yeah, 5 digits, 50 stacks.
right, right, right.
And one, before we get into some of the nitty gritty of it, how did it feel when you were awarded that? And was this your first grant?
Yeah, so for the landmark kids, yes, this was our first grant. It was definitely a very exciting experience because I mean the timing of it was perfect. It was exactly what we needed to really help to scale what we've already built and have been growing. So it's just we're very grateful for the opportunity. Now, in general, outside of the Landmark Kids, is it my first awarded grant? No, I've had experience doing grant writing prior to the Landmark Kids, in addition to giving funding to organizations who actually applied for grant funding from us. So I have a bit of a background in that world, but it is the first time for the Landmark Kids.
Yeah, yeah. It's different when you receive like personally something that's yours that you're building, right? Um, you all actually challenged me personally. It's like, okay, guy, I'm gonna find a grant for Access Granted from a business side because I've never received one from a business, point of view. I've received one when I ran my 4-H youth development program. I actually received a bunch of them, but I've never received them for myself. And then similar to you, Nichelle, I actually sit on the board now where I read and review grants and then we give them out to the community as on a foundation level. So I understand those sides, but receiving one from yourself, I'm waiting to get that feeling of it's like it's cool, but like when I can't even compare it to that. I'm gonna stop that thought and not even come out with it, right? Um, so I know the experience of your experiences of one writing grants and then also reading and review and giving out grants that helped you to learn how to do the process of actually writing the grant out, what needs to be included, how to format this in the best format and fashion. But there were some intangible factors that you all experienced with this particular grant in 50,000, which was the title or the tagline here, a building relationship. What so and I'm kind of leading the audience here, but you all built a relationship. Can you talk a little bit about who that relationship was with and how that relationship formed a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, we're actually based in Ohio. So we actually built a relationship with a regional incubator outside of Youngstown, Youngstown Business Incubator, that really supports entrepreneurs, especially those that are either in tech or tech enabled, to help them to start and grow their businesses. And so for us, initially kind of connected with them through uh, a mentor. So a previous mentor who's been doing some work with them, and I knew that we needed some support and some advice on the marketing side of things. So with her relationship with them, she encouraged us to talk to them and apply for their incubator program, which is just free services and advising,
Hmm.
and essentially. But we started that relationship like 6 months even before we even asked for any money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big part of the process, is that you want to build that relationship before you need something in that sense, right? It's, not much different than, courtship and getting married. Like you don't ask someone to get married the first day that you meet them. You typically date and court and get to know each other first,
Yeah.
right? You want to know that they're going to do what they say they're going to do, that they're
This ain't reality
reliable. That
TV. This is real life.
in my mind.
But
And so like that was a big part of it, right? Like we asked for advice before we asked for money.
Mm,
And I think that's a really key piece too of,
mm,
getting the advice, executing on it, sharing, your progress and your wins along the way, sharing where you may be having some challenges and what you've learned and what you're going to do about that so that they can see, okay, this person is serious about their business, in our particular case, or organization. This person, executes on what they say they're going to do, and they're meeting the particular milestones they put in place. So, that was a big, big part of it. In addition to that, we had conversations about applying to the grant before we applied. So it wasn't just like a cold, I'm applying to it. The person who
mm,
was running it, I said, hey, let's jump on a phone call. Let's talk, about this grant opportunity. Share it with them what we were looking to use it for. In our particular case, it was marketing and advertising. And talked about how does that fit with what they're looking for, and kept building that relationship even leading up to actually submitting the grant. In addition to the committee actually meeting, so there was a lot of meeting and preparation that took place.
mm. That's good and really rich. And I want to unpack that a little bit. Just a little bit about my story for you all who don't know. I've received 100% of the grants that I wrote for myself, like for my program, not for myself, but for the program. And a lot of that became because of the recognition of the organization I was with, but then also a level of recognition of who I was and being able to deliver on the program. And I'm not saying that I'm blessed because there was one organization I was really reflecting over my journey. There were some times where I applied and got the funds, right? But I think it was because there was a name association with the overall arching program I was with that it helped it helped cause some influence, right? And but when I look back at it, the next step that I did after I received those funding that first time was immediately begin to develop relationship to deepen to help them to see
mm,
that okay, even though Guy is with this larger organization, this is still Guy because there are other organizations that still from the same group maybe applying. So again, for those who don't remember, I'm the 4-H agent. I was the 4-H agent for Berkeley County, North Carolina, and there are 100 different 4-H programs within inside of North Carolina and for each county. And so there could have been 100 different organizations applying for that same pool of resources. But then I was able to position myself because after that first time, I was able to build a relationship. I
mhm,
was very intentional about, hey, what do you guys like? What do you see? Do y'all need Did you need your marketing on my program? Right? Can I help? Share your word about what you all do. What events are y'all doing that we can show up to? Right. But then what you
yep,
said, Nichelle, was right on point because there are two things that grantors are looking for, whether you're a business or a nonprofit, right? It's can you exist long term, right? They want to know, can you actually do what you said you were going to do long term, right? That because most businesses fail within 3 years. The same statistic is true with nonprofits. Most of them close their doors within 3 to 5 years. And they want to know that the money that they're giving out as a steward of those resources are going to be used to help grow, to help an organization to grow or to achieve their mission, whatever that may be as a nonprofit or a business. And you
mm,
guys are structured as a business, so they want to see is there going to be a return on their investment, right? And so I'm
mm,
glad that you all had that experience of they saw that you were in their course, in their program, asking questions. They saw that y'all weren't the same person 3 months from when y'all first started. They said, oh, wow, they're actually doing these things. They're hitting these metrics. They were clear about what they are doing and they were able to see that. So I can't speak for them because I don't know them. I don't know their mind. I don't know their processes. But for me, as a grantor, thinking, wow, I can trust them because I see their incremental steps. They have a clear plan, from there. So now, from you receiving this funding, right? How are you looking at maintaining this relationship? Is it you get did y'all just get the money and you're done? I got my goal. Am I out? Right, kind of thing. I don't know if any kids are gonna say this. I want to try to preserve my language of where I used to be and some things I used to do before Jesus came into my life. But
Yeah, no,
because there are
this
some
is
times,
a long
yeah,
term marriage.
Of course,
yeah,
of
yeah,
course.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Still a long
so
term
so
marriage.
definitely. Yeah, so
Mm,
so we are definitely still in conversation and still in relationship with the
Hmm.
organization as well. And so, in addition to the fact that, our grant has a particular life cycle, we're still going to be meeting with our advisor, regularly every month, giving them updates of how things are doing, still, seeking their advice on how things are going, sharing our KPIs and our metrics, our key performance indicators, so that they also can see, okay, how is this being leveraged, right? And so that's a big part of what we'll be continuing to do with the organization. And ultimately, you want it to be mutual, right?
mm,
Hmm.
So, in the same way that they're giving us funding, which is very helpful for us, we want to also make sure that they're meeting their particular goals. They're trying to make sure that the region is robust, that, we are economically strong, ideally being able to create jobs. And so, and also helping to boost their own name recognition, right? So that's a big part of what we want to make sure that we're doing is that both parties involved, being the Landmark Kids and this organization, are winning from the relationship. So it definitely is going to be ongoing. And just as we win, they win. And as they win, we
Right. And for those that may be unfamiliar with the business incubator, from my research, they're a nonprofit that's structured, so they're receiving grant dollars with some key objectives that they are to meet. And so by Nichelle and Matthuel of the Landmark Kids really meeting those outcomes for their business, they're helping the grantor meet their outcomes. And so that when they report back up to whoever they receive their funding from, they can say that, hey, our people came through our program, they received this type of coaching, and they were able to yield these type of results economically. Right. So that level of
mm-hmm.
mutualism is extremely key. And they get to then reapply for more funding. So individuals who are like Matthuel in a shell can actually receive more funding to scale and to grow their business or their nonprofit as well too. So that's huge. That's huge. So what are some your favorite strategies for actually really developing relationships that you can share to the audience? Because some of them they may be more reserved or they don't want to get out and share their story or go shake a hand. What are some maybe three strategies that a person could actually do right now to start developing relationships, and then also what are some of your favorite ones that you could do that you do, not you, that you can't do?
Yeah, and I can jump in and start with at least one, and I'm sure Matthew will want to contribute to that as well. But I definitely, that whole concept of seek advice first. Like I think that that's a big part of it. Like I think sometimes we want to come to people trying to get something from them, but in general, you're just kind of coming in, building that initial relationship, learning more about that person, them learning more about you, and then kind of figuring out, okay, well, how can I support you and what your goals are? And then from there, if I have advice, or need advice, I can ask you for that as well. But like, that has to be something that you're kind of getting over time and building that relationship over time, and just really seeing, like, learning who that person is initially, learning each other, and then seeing how can you support one another. And that's where really, like, kind of that advice piece comes into play, right? Because advice is free, like, so it's no like social capital that's involved in that or anything, to just give advice. So I think that's a big part of it. learn about each other, see how you can give and be supportive to that person first. Then, from there, you can seek advice before you kind of are wanting a heavier lift in the relationship.
Mm.
Mhm.
I'll jump in as well, where once you start that relationship, to also make sure that you deliver on your results because the results are so important for to have a person who's a champion behind the closed doors. Someone had to champion us, when they were voting who's going to get the money. So you have to make sure that you're moving forward, you're doing the results. So way in our context, if they look at our P&L, or if they're looking at our social media, if they're looking at our business plan, whatever the case may be, whatever their requirements are, that we're executing on them, we're delivering on them, we're moving forward on them, gives them the confidence that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So one question that popped up in my mind is, I sometimes I'm very strategic and I'm like, okay, approaching, how do you limit that? I still that voice in the back of your mind that says I still want to get something from them because I know they have these pool of funds. I've done some research. I know that, and I know that in September they're going to give out this funding. Right, this is when their portal opens. How do you limit that? Because that's, for me, that sometimes that's still in the back of my mind. It's like when I'm looking for a grantor for an organization I'm writing for, like I am really building that relationship because they have a resource that we actually need. So how do you, for some of that people that might feel that icky feeling, like I'm really only doing this because they do have some things I really want. But I hear what Nichelle is saying. How do you limit that? Like, well, how do you embody that, embrace it, or limit it? How do you move around that emotion that people may feel when they know that they really need something from an organization, but they also are applying what you just shared. I do want to seek their advice because they do have this amazing knowledge, but I also know I need this $50,000 when I want to apply for that later. So how do you navigate that space?
Yeah. And I think it's about understanding the dynamic of the relationship. So when it's a funder, I think it's, the expectation is that they're supposed to give out funding, right?
Hmm.
So that is a big part of their purpose. But in the midst of that, there's still the relationship that has to be built, right? Like they still have to get to know you. You still have to get to know them. Oftentimes, there is someone advocating on your behalf, and so being able to start building that relationship at minimum 6 months before you are actually needing the ask, I think is very advantageous. That is a common practice that I have done over time because you might even decide that it's not a good fit for you. You never know.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
all money isn't good money, right?
Ooh, yeah, that's
And
good.
so there's the opportunity of really being able to get to know each other and really seeing like, okay, is this going to be a good fit? And then from there, you just understand if they're a funder, that's
Part of
the end goal. That's the
the
relationship, right? And it's okay. That is their mission statement. That is the purpose, is to solve a particular issue through giving out funds. And so if that is how you're helping them to meet their mission by addressing a particular issue that they're then able to use their funds to do, then it's still a win-win ultimately. And so, through that, being able to learn more about them, being able to understand what their goals are, kind of continuing to work on your own business to not only meet their goals, because obviously you have to meet your goals initially, but if it's an alignment with what they're ultimately going to be asking for in their grant, then that's just what you're kind of doing and working towards up until the point where you're actually going to be asking for the funds. It's okay. It's okay to come in knowing that at some point you're going to be asking for money. That's the dynamic of the relationship.
That's good, and that was something that I personally wrestled with. Of okay, I know I'm only really building this relationship to get this, but a comment in the chat from Donnell Johns said every giver needs a givee, and
Very
that's
true.
something to embody for those that actually may be having that feeling, that emotion that's paralyzing you from going out and building a new relationship with a potential funder. right? Who's also whose values align with yours. Because as Nichelle said and Matthuel said, sometimes you want to get to see behind the screen, like that initial conversation, be like, ooh, yeah, I don't want to necessarily associate with them because they're saying I need to do this, and this may cause my brand to have to shift this way. The things that we built up, some of their core values actually aren't really aligning to what we are, and I don't want my name to be recognized with that. And then you need to step away because not all money is good money, especially for what
Yeah.
you're building, right? And so, wow, that's good. That's good, and thank
And
you,
the,
Donnell, for that comment. Every
Hmm.
giver needs a givee.
and there's sometimes strings attached. As you get to better understand those strings, you might
Hmm.
not be interested in those type of
Yeah,
strings. You know,
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. You may not have the capacity to, and like actually, and let's go a little bit about into that a little bit more because all grants are made different. Some you don't have to have resources made available. Sometimes you may have to spend some money up front and then you get reimbursed. And if you don't have the funds to get reimbursed, you that may not be a grant for you. But for this one, are there any what are those any kind of stipulations for? Is this like a matching grant? Like how is this grant structured for you all?
Yeah, so this particular grant was a matching grant. And so essentially you could ask for whatever you needed up to 50K based on what you could provide. Um, and so, for us, it was like, well, let's just go big on it, right? And leverage, other funding resources to be able to bring that match.
Mm-hmm.
So, like being able to do that, like it really helped everyone again, right? Because to your point, the organization is set up that they're a nonprofit who are receiving grant dollars that they are required to give out. And so we're helping them by making sure that they can give the money out by being able to leverage that particular match.
Yeah.
and sometimes too is like a use it or lose it type of policy for certain organizations. So if they don't use it by the
Hmm.
end of the calendar year, then they're going to lose it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so they're motivated to get it
Yeah. 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 And so and the negative side for that for nonprofits is when they have to give back funding, the question from the grantor is like, when you apply again next year, do you really need those funds because you can't actually utilize them all? So
right.
it's if you've received grants, right, you want to make sure that you're using every single penny. Like my mom used to tell me, my mom received over $1 billion in grant funding to change northeastern North Carolina, and as I was learning from her, she shared, yeah, you if you have 3 cent left, go buy a stamp because you want to show you used every
Mm.
single dollar, every single cent, so that way they can see that okay, you deliver your program, you actually need this much. You need you really do need these resources, so they don't make you force you to decrease your budget moving forward. Yeah, so that's good. That's good. And I also hear when it comes to a matching grant, right? Like the one that you all knew that you were. Did you know beforehand that it was a matching grant? First question.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
So some people may see that and say, and this is a mindset piece that as you're going out and seeking these funds that you have to develop because there may be those opportunities where you miss it and it's like, man, we could have really used that and this is the only one that's there. But because of that one stipulation, some people may say, man, we don't have an extra $25,000 around. Shoot, we're just trying to get by, right? What was
Mm.
the mindset that y'all had to say that? I don't know if y'all had the 25 or not just ready, but was there some level of creative thinking? What did y'all say to yourselves when you saw that potential obstacle?
Mm. Well, one of the benefits of it is we can now transition funding from advertising to other parts of our business. So we wanted to really think about it as instead of us putting all this money here, why don't we get a large set of capital, which could last for a number of months, and just reallocate that money to other parts of our business so we could keep growing that other way. So instead of looking at it like, I can't, how can we get to the yes first, which we work to get to the yes. And then second, what can we utilize with this new set of cash, freeing our cash? This is our cash now that it's free. What can we do with that cash now?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is like having to work through your your own limiting beliefs. I think sometimes we naturally want to just take enough.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're like, let me just take this little 5K and like, see what I can do with it, right? We're so accustomed to having to be resourceful. Um, and so, like, because of that, we end up putting limits on ourselves and what is really possible. Versus, as Matthuel mentioned, of like, how do you get to the yes? So, if we, were able to actually get this full amount, like, what could happen from that? How would our
Mm,
business be better from that? And as you're then focusing on what could be, then it's like, okay, well, like, what do we need to actually do to get this matching grant, and what conversations do we need to be having, and what creative ways can we do that? How can we leverage business credit and other things like that in order to be able to move things forward? So I think that that's a big part of it with the mindset as well, is like, well, what could be if all of a sudden you had the resources that you needed?
mm. What could be if you had all the resources that you needed? How
We
can
actually,
I? Go ahead.
oh
Hmm.
no, you're hitting it. We put a whiteboard and we just brainstorm. What would we do at 50K?
Yeah.
You know, what
Yeah.
options, what potential could take place, and then we start mapping it out. And as we start mapping it out, we're like, yeah, we're asking for 50 because the pie is bigger and the potential is bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. So those that have nonprofits, businesses, right? We're ending this year in a couple of days, right? And then we start in that new year. You may have already been strategically planning and saying, we need this for our organization to reach our number, right? It may be your number in sales, and you see that you need more marketing, you need more advertising, right? It could be that you're a nonprofit saying that, man, we could use an extra $100,000 this year to hire an executive director or a program staff because I'm getting burnt out, right? But then if you start saying, I've never received a grant before for our organization, but I do see $100,000 sitting over here 7 months from now, like next, what's seven? Next July, I can apply for that. Next August, I can apply for that. Um, but thinking, how can I? Opens the door for opportunities. One of my favorite quotes, I forgot who said it, but one of my best friends always told it to me because I was in that place of limited thinking. I was in that place of a failure mindset. And he always would say to me, what the thinker thinks, the prover proves. So the thinking, your conscious mind, is what you're always thinking. And then your subconscious mind is the prover, right? So if you're thinking, I can't come up with an extra $25,000 to apply for this, to get this grant, you're not going to have any creative ideas on how to move this for 2 months over here. Or I can leverage business credit to do this over here. Or I could ask for 10 people for 200 and $2,500 to get 25,000, right, to help match this because it's coming in kind donations for the nonprofit. You lose on those opportunities for your subconscious mind to help you to think about what ways that you can do this. In a couple of weeks, in the start of the year, um, the Access Granted team and I, we're going to actually holding our first challenge, right? Where we talk about the mindset and these intangibles that go into grant writing. Because it's important for you to know as you're going out and applying for these funds, you may not have the time to do all this grant, because grant writing is a lot of work, right? You're budgeting at least 30 hours for one. And that's if you're good, right? I do this, I budget 30 hours per grant, right? Especially for a new organization I'm working with. But for those who don't know how to do it, you might want to spend more time. And then you're looking at pumping those out in volume to get what you need. But then if your mindset's not right to go and get that, you're wasting your time. You might get lucky, right? We're going to talk deeper about the mindset component in that challenge coming up in January, actually later January. So marketing will be coming out soon. But then also, we're going to be talking about what Matthuel and Nichelle did, the power of building relationships, coming not just from the grantor side, but coming from a corporate sponsor ish, right? A person who sits in that higher office with access to a bunch of capital, who gets requests all the time. You're going to hear about the things that you should do and you shouldn't do, right? During that time, how to tell your story, because even with Nichelle and Matthuel, Nichelle's had the experience. We gave her the leg up, but she had to be able to tell her story on paper, right? And that's a skill. And we're talking about how to tell your story. But then when they met Matthuel and Nichelle, they also had to tell that story out loud, which is a different skill because you have time to think on paper. Nobody's watching you. You're not getting that pressure, the eyes burning right into you, piercing your soul, and you feel the sweat coming, right? But we were talking about how to do that in person. Okay, and a bunch of other things as well too, to make sure that in 2024 and beyond, that you can access the funding that's available. But before we end tonight, Matthew and Nichelle, how can people connect with you? One, to purchase your product. I actually thought we were getting it for Christmas for the girls, so we're going in to purchase it now, tonight actually, because I want to get the. Can we still get the Kenya set, by the way? Just
Sure. Yep, you sure
okay,
can.
okay, all right, because we don't start
Five
preparing for that. What's that? In 5 hours? I
yeah,
got five.
5 more days.
Five
Five more
more
days.
days.
Okay. Okay. All right. Cool. Because we really wanted that. But where can people go to to understand who you guys are more, social
Hmm.
medias, and then also actually look into purchasing the Landmark Kids?
For sure, for sure. Oh, first off, you could find us at thelandmarkkids.com. That's the best place to be able to not only learn what we're doing, but also be able to purchase as well. And you can follow us on Instagram at thelandmarkkids.com and Facebook, thelandmarkkids.com. So,
At the Landmark Kids.
right.
All right. All right. Awesome. Awesome, you guys. Any last words that you want to share before we wrap up tonight?
Well, first off, guys, thank you so much for having us here. It was definitely a great conversation, and
Yeah.
it's always great to not only share but also to hear your input as well because you have a lot of wealth of information. Um,
Thank
but
you.
yeah, I think one of the things you hit is super important. The sky, some people say the sky's the limit. Some people say go shoot to the moon, and then someone challenges to shoot even further than that. But don't let the size of the grant hold you back from pursuing it.
That's good. Don't hold yourselves back in 2024.
That's it.
There's people who need you. Like Matthew and Nichelle, one thing when I learned about them when I first met them, people need this tool, right? Because everyone can't just pick up and travel across the country to another country, but they can do it when they open a box together individually, that child or as a family. That expands their mind, right? And I'm so thankful that they received that funding because they get to expand a kid's mind like mine, right? Had I not met those people, from Australia, from South Africa, from England, France, from South America, from Denmark, I mean, all over the world, I would have been stuck in a one stoplight county, not
Hmm.
knowing that there's other culture out here. I would have been ignorant and saying some just really ignorant things about beautiful people all over because I didn't understand, right? That gift, that what they have now has greater access because they received funding to be able to share. Your
Hmm.
organization, you're doing some amazing work, but you do need some resources. And I want you to take that mindset, hey, that we can get this funding out here. How can we do it? That's what I
Hmm.
want for you all in 2024 because people need it. People need you. And with that, you all, we signing off tonight. We'll see you next Tuesday. It'll actually be the first of the new year. So again, landmarkkids.com, Landmark Kids on Instagram, Facebook. You all, I'm excited to share. I'm just excited for you all in 2024. For those who are listening, we got some great things coming up. But again, I just want y'all to get this funding that's out there because I remember myself. I remember my peers. If my mom hadn't did what she did, I can't imagine what my life would have been like now, right? the kids that I still talk to, telling them Merry Christmas just a couple of days ago because I saw them right around here. I look at the funding that I was able to receive and what they were able to experience in the time I had with them. Huge. So, guys, I want you all to go get it. Y'all have a great night. Talk to you soon. Next week, Tuesday, 8:45. Peace.